Good morning. Today we're finishing up looking at rhetoric in Hope, Despair, and Memory. We're transitioning from looking at Hope, Despair, and Memory this class to looking at rhetoric and other speeches in the following classes. So in Hope, Despair, and Memory we had a written speech we don't have the recording for, so it's really looking at that language and identifying the rhetorical devices and their impact. That way when we look at verbal speeches in the next few classes, we can start to understand how those rhetorical devices are used to impact a speech. So as a reminder, I just pulled up the slides from the Nearpod last class. Rhetoric is the art of effective persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. So in novels or narrative writing, we look for literary devices. So similes, metaphor, figurative language. Sometimes we do have that repetition. And you'll see those in rhetoric. So rhetoric is sort of like your literary elements that you're finding in speeches rather than novels or persuasive pieces. And some examples include figurative language, religious references, tone, repetition, your rhetorical appeals of ethos, logos, pathos. We use all three of those in order to draw interest into the persuasive topic or reading. So last class you were looking at rhetorical appeals and rhetorical devices. You had done a formative assessment, which was a matching, and you had to match the definitions to the three rhetorical appeals of ethos, logos, pathos, and then 10 other rhetorical devices we'll be studying in this unit. So I'm trying to find ones that are really applicable to not just the regions, but what you would see in your reading in speeches that would help you better understand those speeches or persuasive readings. Today we're going to transition to looking at a chart that is similar to the questions you answered on the Nearpod last class. So you're discussing the impact, or that should say affect with an A, on the reader. So rhetorical devices are used to emphasize a point, develop an author's point of view, develop a central idea, a purpose, and sometimes they're just used to make a text more beautiful, powerful, or to engage the reader. So, for example, last class you looked at how Elie Wiesel used imagery, anecdotes, and allusions to impact the reader. So the first thing you looked at was that quote, a tidal wave of hatred, which is actually not just imagery, but a metaphor. So I asked you to draw a picture of what you envisioned through this language of the tidal wave of hatred. Because what's hard about rhetorical devices is first you have to identify the meaning of them and then analyze how they impact the reader. So just a couple of your drawings. So this person drew the tidal wave spilling over the Jewish people and put the hate in the tidal wave. So that was a really nice visual of what came to mind, because imagery is supposed to paint a picture in your mind, or as I say, use strong language to connect to your senses. I like this one. I tried. Yes, you did. So hatred is a wave coming over the Jewish people. And you see everything is very similar for what you guys came up with in your pictures. After you're able to identify the imagery of the tidal wave of hatred, I asked you to answer the second question, which is, what is the impact on the reader? So what was the author revealing about the Nazis and survivors of the Holocaust through this vivid language? And so one person said the author is revealing the amount of hate the Jewish people got was all at once and overwhelming. Beautiful description. So the hatred during the Holocaust was overwhelming. This person said Wiesel was trying to reveal that Nazis just took their hatred on the Jews during the Holocaust. Good. So you're understanding the impact of that. The author is revealing that Jewish people are knocked off their feet because of all the hatred they have for the Nazis. We can prepare for waves so they don't knock us down so hard. The feeling the waves can come easier to them if they prepare for the downfall. I really liked this response because it has a deeper analysis. So this person talked about the meaning of that tidal wave of hatred, but then also related it back to the reader to show that impact they had reading this. That we can also learn that although things can be impactful, we need to get back up and try again. And I mean, if someone from the Holocaust can do that and write about it, then hopefully we can too, showing the impact on the reader. So today what you're going to be doing is similar. So you'll need to come over to the rhetorical device chart This is in week 20 for 3BD. It's in week 21 for 1AC just because of how the schedule has gotten a little off due to those AC asynchronous classes. But you're going to find that HDM rhetorical device chart and open that. Make sure you click that blue hyperlink so it opens up in a new tab. And you looked at 3 rhetorical devices last class. We're continuing with those 10 that we want to kind of repeat and look at over and over again. So today you'll be looking at simile, reference to religion, repetition, rhetorical question, and tone, which tone's a really good one because it comes up in every piece of writing. You can always identify a tone. So the directions are at the top. It says view the literary device and example for number 1 and 2. In the right-hand column, you're going to describe the meaning and the impact of the literary device on the reader. You might comment on how the literary device impacts the power, persuasiveness, point of view, or author's purpose, just like you saw on that Nearpod slide. If you go to your slides for this week as well, I copied that slide over into your week 20 slides for 3BD and your week 21 slides for 1AC. So this is what you're saying. So was that rhetorical device, after you understand it, used to emphasize a point, develop a point of view, help develop a central idea? So refer to that for help. And then for number 3 and 4, you're going to find your own examples. So if you notice, in column 1, I have an example. In the first column, you have the literary device with definition. So for my example, I have a metaphor, which is a term or phrase applied to something to which is not literally applicable. A comparison that does not use like or as. Oftentimes, metaphors are symbols. So it's a word or phrase that's standing for a different meaning. So in the second column, you have your example of that literary device or rhetorical device. And it says the memory of evil will serve as a shield against evil. The memory of death will serve as a shield against death. So in that third column is where you're doing the work. So I gave you my example. It says the meaning of the metaphor is that memory can act as protection or a shield against death or evil. And then, so that's my meaning. So I identified what that metaphor means. And then finally, I want to analyze. This develops the author's purpose by showing how the audience can remember in order to protect others from future atrocities. So memory is protection or shield, and that connects to the audience, showing that they have the ability to protect others. And I underlined the effect. Okay, in this case it was author's purpose. It was helping develop author's purpose. Use my stems if you need to. If you struggle, you can just, come down here and write the meaning is, if I could type, and then type the meaning, and then for your second quote, this develops, and then show how it impacts the reader, or this impacts the reader by, okay? So you're doing the simile and metaphor. I gave you the citations. Now 3 and 4 get a little bit harder. So for 3 and 4, I've given you the paragraph where the repetition is found, but I need you to find the repetition, and then you'll type it where it says type quote here. And then again, you'll do the meaning and the impact. And then number 4, again, asks you to find a rhetorical question from Hope to Spare Memory and type it with citation. So there's many of them. You just need to search and find one and then explain the impact. And then finally, tone. This is the advanced skill. So if you get to it and you want to challenge yourself, the tone is the attitude of a writer towards a subject or audience. In this case, our subject is the Holocaust. The audience is, you could say, the target audience is Jewish people, but really the audience is humankind. So you're going to find a quote that uses strong language to develop a helpless tone. So it would be a quote where I'm seeing synonyms for helpless, or that's making you as a reader feel helpless. Because really when I think of tone, I think it's the author's way of making you feel how you feel. Mood is how you actually feel. So what does the tone reveal about the author's feelings towards the subject? Or what is being discussed? What does it reveal about his feelings towards the Holocaust or finding peace in the future? Okay, after you finish that, please check in with me and if you have any questions.